the Competition and Markets Authority, CMA, is undergoing a significant restructuring, driven by government calls for a less risk-averse approach and mounting criticism regarding its interventionist stance. Sarah Cardell, the CMA's chief executive, announced a strategic overhaul, citing a dramatically altered operating environment as the primary catalyst for this change. This shift follows considerable frustration among businesses and policymakers alike, leading to the recent resignation of the CMA's chair, Marcus Bockerink. His departure, occurring shortly after a meeting with government officials to discuss regulatory reform aimed at boosting economic growth, sparked further controversy. Cardell's outline plan emphasizes a fundamental shift towards fostering a more dynamic and competitive business landscape, characterized by. This represents a marked departure from the CMA's previous, arguably more interventionist, approach. The government's push for this reform stems from a broader initiative to revitalize the UK's sluggish economic growth. This initiative, spearheaded by Prime Minister Rishi Sunak, although the text doesn't explicitly name him, the context strongly implies it, reflects a growing concern among government officials that overzealous regulation is stifling innovation, and Sunak's direct intervention, as highlighted by his statement at an October investment summit emphasizing the need for regulators to prioritize growth, underscores the seriousness of this concern. The appointment of Gurr, a former Amazon UK boss, as interim chair has further fueled the debate. This selection, viewed by some as potentially problematic given Gurr's previous role within a large corporation subject to CMA scrutiny, has drawn criticism from various stakeholders, including technology firms, publishers, and consumer advocacy groups like Which. They argue that this appointment signals a potential conflict of interest and raises questions about the CMA's commitment to unbiased regulation. The concerns extend beyond the appointment itself, encompassing the broader perception that the CMA is becoming overly accommodating to large corporations, potentially hindering fair competition and innovation. The impetus for this reform is multifaceted, fueled by multiple converging factors. Businesses have consistently complained about excessive CMA intervention in mergers and acquisitions, hindering their ability to expand and compete effectively. This sentiment has been amplified by high-profile cases such as Microsoft's attempted acquisition of Activision Blizzard. The CMA's initial blockage of this deal, followed by Microsoft President Brad Smith's public criticism labeling the UK as bad for business, intensified the pressure for regulatory reform. While the deal ultimately received approval, the negative publicity and the perceived damage to the UK's business reputation served as a wake-up call for. The Labour Party, led by Keir Starmer, has also joined the chorus calling for regulatory reform, aligning their stance with the Conservative government on this issue. This bipartisan support underscores the urgency and widespread recognition of the need for a more growth-oriented regulatory approach. The government's stated aim is not simply to reduce regulation for its own sake, but to create a more balanced regulatory environment that encourages competition, innovation, and ultimately, faster economic growth. The challenge lies in finding the right balance, reducing unnecessary burdens on businesses, while maintaining robust safeguards against anti-competitive practices and protecting consumer interests. The success of this reform will hinge on the CMA's ability to navigate this delicate equilibrium and demonstrate a clear commitment to transparency and fairness in its decision-making processes. The coming months will be crucial in determining whether this step change translates into a more effective and growth-supportive regulatory framework for the UK.